I'm Richard Gearhart, an intellectual property attorney specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do the marketing for Gearhart Law and I have my own startup.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship. Tonight, we have Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Gilda Carle, who's a world-renowned go-to relationship strategist. And it's always a pleasure to have her on. And I'm really looking forward to our interview with her.
And then we have Sue Marshall with NETZRO. So Sue is on a mission to eliminate food waste. Wow. This is so innovative, the way she's doing this. I can hardly wait to hear all about it. And after her, we have Jean-Que Dar, known as Q, with TAP. And TAP is a mobile app where entertainment professionals connect. So I'm excited to hear about that too. So
all good stuff. But before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time for IP in the news. So what are we talking about today? Well,
I was shocked to find this article that said, and this article was on Music Business Worldwide. I was shocked to find this. It's by Murray Stassen, and TikTok actually owns a patent, and now they're filing for a trademark.
So that would imply that TikTok is going to create its own music platform?
Music streaming service. And what's interesting is that they have some twists and turns to it that other platforms don't have, but the patent was applied for in 2018 and granted in 2021. So even though you think, well, how could they get this with all these other platforms? Things were still different in 2018. And I just think it's interesting that they actually get patents, because you never think of these streaming services as having patents. Of course, they're going to get a trademark, and the trademark is TikTok music.
Right. Well, I think it's kind of funny that, TikTok would get a music streaming service. I guess it makes sense, but it's like they should also have a dancing service, right? TikTok should start a dancing club. And I guess dancing and music go together. Right. So it does make a certain amount of sense, I guess.
I guess it does. It's just, I think that patents are important, and usually tech companies and companies like this ignore that, but TikTok didn't.
Right. Well, if you're going to get into it and you're going to go up against Apple and, Pandora and some of the other streaming services, I guess a little protection, can go a long way, or at least, give them some help. So it's time for Richard's Roundtable now, and we'd like to go around with the group. Dr. Gilda, like I said, so good to see you here again. What is your thoughts about TikTok and streaming and music?
I think it's wonderful that TikTok is getting into that. TikTok has gotten out there in quite a large way in recent times. For a long time, they were the don't tell anybody I'm using it site. And now they have just blossomed, where people who are doing very traditional kinds of things are showing themselves on TikTok. So it is becoming more acceptable, it seems. I don't know, we hear about the negatives as well as the positives. And children shouldn't be on this and that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But I think it's a wonderful thing that they're adding music to their whole spectrum of services.
Yeah, you make an interesting point, which is that as these streaming services become more popular, more companies start jumping on the bandwagon because they want to reach more people. And as a consequence, the platform sort of becomes more commercial and more, sort of less raw, because now you have people who are trying to make money out of it. So I guess, what you said is right. This is a natural next step. So Kenya, what are your thoughts?
So I think it's brilliant, and for a few different reasons. TikTok has been the tool that a lot of artists, especially a lot of younger artists who are breaking into the music space, have actually broken their records, and it's gone viral on TikTok. So it makes a lot of sense that they would create the streaming platform, because now they can use the viralness, for lack of better words, that it's created for artists to now become a competitor to Apple, right? Apple doesn't have that same capacity to break new music, right? It's almost like I think of TikTok as the digital audio version of what radio used to be when we used to break records back in the day. So I think it's smart that they've jumped into this space and are going to be competing with Apple.
No, that's a great comment. And you're right. I mean, Apple has to rely on the more traditional venues to promote their music. And TikTok has a whole ready-made audience for their stuff. So,
and a visual
one too. So, wow, that is so amazing. Q, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's really fascinating, and to echo what Kenya mentioned, because they have a much more newer audience, I think that they're going to run into a lot of challenges with a lot of the established companies that already exist, such as how do you get content from Sony and Atlantic Records and all of those major brands now to jump onto the platform. And I think that's one of the things I've always loved about the entertainment industry. They're always looking for something new. So because TikTok, again, has all of the new talent and they have all of the new songs and people are trying to reach the younger audience, they are going to run into a lot of different challenges in trying to reach the older audience that already have pre-existing subscriptions such as Spotify and Apple Music. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of paying for another service or another fee. But I think it's really smart because, again, they can monetize that. And I do foresee maybe as the talents start to grow and emerge, they start to also add additional subscriptions, or they try to branch out and to get a service or to get their content on Spotify and Apple Music, because again, they want to be able to reach a larger audience. I also think TikTok has a long way to go before they try to dominate this space, because we're also starting to see that a lot of artists are trying to get access to their rights and their residuals, and they want to get that protected. And lastly, I think it's also very interesting that this is probably going to be the first Chinese major platform in the music industry that's combating with a lot of other countries such as the United States, where we again have Spotify and Apple Music, and I believe Tidal just was recently purchased by another company as well. So I'm interested to see where this goes, because as we all know, like China is really big on censoring, and they're really big on that. So it'd be interesting to see if they allow other stuff to get released out there in the world, but they won't allow it in their own country. So it's really interesting to see where this is going to go. So it's a very smart move, obviously, but also very interesting to see how this ends up.
Yeah,
Great.
I think you're right. And I think you made a huge point there, that anybody that's going to start something new like this better figure out the revenue sharing piece of it, because artists just aren't going to take it anymore where they give away their content for free. So
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Sue, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually love this. And the reason is I've been asked recently to get on TikTok. Well, actually, people have come over the last year, get on TikTok. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And this is more of a science education piece, which I thought was confusing to me, because the TikToks I've seen have been more silly, but in the science community, they believe that that's a good way to educate people on different science things like we do, food upcycling. And then, of course, I believe that music is a great way to communicate your message. And I had an artist write a song and produce a song about food waste. And so I'm like, whoa, maybe there's a way that you can put music for educational purposes and messaging purposes to get something impactful like upcycling food to eliminate food waste out there to people and have it fun. Hey.
absolutely.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great idea too. So I guess from the passage to profit side of things, thumbs up to TikTok, and you've got 1000% of our support going forward.
They're capturing that in between audience. They're capturing the high school students.
Right.
And then moving into young adulthood. And that's where a lot of marketers want to catch people. So I think that's why they're doing so well. Anyway.
Yep. Well, whoever created TikTok knew what they were doing for
so
sure.
Anyway, on to Dr. Gilda. I'm so excited.
Yes, Dr. Gilda Carle. And I'm just going to read her bio, because I always just kind of I never really give her full credit for all of the magnificent and incredible things that she's done with her career so far. So Dr. Gilda Carle, PhD, is a power strategist and media coach serving clients worldwide. As a media personality, she was the host of Fox's Dr. Gilda TV show pilot, MTV's Love Doc, and TV shows on Trinity Broadcasting Network. She wrote the 30-second therapist column for the Today Show and the Ask Dr. Gilda column for Match.com. And she was the therapist in HBO's Emmy Award winner, Telling Nicholas. And the list really goes on and on. I know she's been in the media and the celebrity world for most of her life. And it's always a pleasure to have her back. So thank you very much, Dr. Gilda, for joining us. And what are you up to lately? And what is it that you want to talk about today?
I have a couple of things brewing, but I can't talk about them yet. They're very, very exciting. One I was reading this invitation from somebody as I was trying to get to sleep, and then I didn't sleep the whole night. I was so excited. But it will be, of course, media involved. I'll let you know when I can. And let's see, I just, last time I saw you, I had just completed my last book, which is it was my 18th book, Amplify Your Media Presence, Amplify Your Brand. Because if you are unable to project yourself online or in person, it doesn't matter. Your brand ain't going to sell. So, and I came up with that because during the pandemic, I was seeing all the suffering that was going on. Suddenly, mere employees who never had a desire to be on television, and I've been on air for what, at least 20 years, people who never wanted to be on television suddenly found themselves behind a computer screen, and pow, I mean, it was all of a sudden they were stars. And even though they were in these little tiny boxes, as we are here, postage stamp sized boxes, they still had to project themselves if they were going to sell whatever that was. And they had no idea, because they'd never been trained, that you are selling yourself every single moment of your life. And if you're not selling right, then forget about it. And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about today. How to project yourself in a powerful way. 3 different ways. Should I get started now, or you want to wait?
Yeah,
I'm
for it.
dying to hear this, Dr. Gilda.
Okay. I'm also, by the way, working on my 19th book, and that's because I have seen some things out there that in the world today that I'm not all that happy with. And I really want to open up the can of worms and let people know what is going on between the genders. Men, women complaining, where are the men? Where are the men with backbones? Where are the men? I mean, I am taking that apart, and it's so much fun getting into the research. Oh, does that strike a chord, Richard?
Well, not with him personally, but yes, with the situation, let's just say.
No, I'm laughing because you're having fun taking men apart. So
well, every time I write another relationship book, it seems that when I'm interviewed on air, people think, oh, it's going to be a male bashing book. And then the interviewer goes through this and says, this was not a male bashing book. And of course not. I want to get women and men as powerful empowered is the word, to become as empowered as they are so that they can communicate better. Right now, we're just missing each other in a very big way. And the name calling and the put downs are just disgusting. And I'm just opening that up, and I'm doing all this pop culture investigating as to what's out there, what's happening in the world to have brought us to this point.
Yeah, I have to say, I've never thought of you as a male basher. So,
No.
obviously, I follow you on LinkedIn, and I really do appreciate, what you're saying. And I think, it sounds like it could be a good time for this kind of book to,
Yeah.
just, get it out there and start, talking about some of the cultural issues that we're
Well,
all
I think
facing.
Yeah, we have to start talking about this now because we have been pushing it under the covers, and it's a shh, don't tell anybody, another thing that we shouldn't tell anybody about.
One of the
Right.
questions though that I just came up, and that is you've been doing relationship coaching for a long time, and how has that changed now over the years? How has your advice remained the same, or has it changed because the world is changing?
Well, does anything remain the same? No, I have to go with the flow. I have to understand what the human condition is at all times with all people. And I am very sensitive always. I have always been very sensitive to the underdog. And that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about today, because I started out my career when I was in New York, in the South Bronx, teaching in the worst neighborhood in the whole wide world. And my mother went to see me. I was 20 years old. I had just graduated from college, and I wanted to go into the South Bronx because I thought I was needed most there. And my mother said, "What? You're going to walk the streets over here?" I said, "I feel that I'm needed here." And so I spent a lot of years doing that work, and they were all kids. They were kids. I didn't care what color they were. They were all kids. And they had these kids' problems. And they didn't know the world as I knew the world. And so I brought my world to them, but they also did me a tremendous favor. They taught me something I could never have learned in any of my books. I have a master's, a baccalaureate, a master's, a PhD, but I did not know street smarts. And those kids were so wildly street smart. And this is what I wanted to start with you today. I'm going to give you 3 power strategies, because everything we do in our life requires a strategy. I am seeing how certain campaigns, political campaigns, fail because they don't have strategies. They don't stick to strategies. They didn't even start with strategies. And I watch this day in and day out in every business. What is your strategy? Well, I just want to do this. I just want to crochet. And no. Talk to me about your strategies. And it started for me actually in the South Bronx without even recognizing that this was happening. So after I was teaching in the South Bronx, got my doctorate, and I went off to teach because I wanted to get my PhD to be a college professor. I didn't even have a scope of understanding of what was out there. So while I was teaching, somebody in one of my classes said, "Have you ever thought about doing corporate training?" I said, "No." All I knew was the South Bronx teaching. And I said, "No." Well, she opened the door and I started doing corporate training. One thing led to another thing. Fortune 500 companies. I was in tremendous demand. I was doing wonderful work. And I thought, oh, this is heaven. I'm getting paid a lot of money and I'm doing this so well. But the differentiation between what I was doing and what other people were doing, because plenty of people do corporate training, I had brought my street smarts with me. And every single presentation I did, every single individual coaching that I did with individuals, with groups, no matter whom, got a dose of South Bronx street smarts. You cannot, and I know this now, deviate from your history. And many of us would like to think that we can put our background, our history on the back burner and just not tell anybody. When I was in the South Bronx, when I was doing corporate work at the same time, I never told anybody. I was ashamed that, well, I'm just a teacher in the South Bronx. And I never told them that until I recognized how valuable that experience was. I have a PhD in South Bronx street smarts in actuality. Now, NYU probably wouldn't tell you that I was granted a degree from them in that. But the reality is that that's what I bring to every single table.
So Dr.
And-
Gilda, I'm just dying to know this. What is the first power strategy that you teach people?
Number one, understand your background, draw from your background, and use your background to permeate everything you're doing in your current situation. For example, Elizabeth, you have a PhD. I don't understand this. For all the years now that I know you, why are you not calling yourself Dr. Elizabeth? Why are you not talking about your genius background, so much more significant than mine is, in your particular field? I don't get it. You have a wealth of information that you can take with you, doing what you're phenomenally doing today, but never forgetting about what your background is. You may think, I just recently met some guy that I was talking to, and he said, well, I have a degree in biochemistry, never used that. I said, I bet you do. And we started talking about that. And he does. And he never classified that as such. So what I'm saying is first power move is to understand your background, be very proud of that background, and let people know how it integrates with what you're doing. So if I'm doing media coaching with one of my clients, and he is an executive, a CEO of a major Fortune 500 company, this has happened, I will definitely tell him things that he will not find in a book. I will definitely let him know to be much more verbose about the things that make him passionate about whatever they are, whatever passionate feelings he has. I will definitely tell him to use those feelings. And you know, in corporate America, that traditionally corporate people have been taught, oh, no, sit on your emotions, don't show emotions, don't show any of that. In reality, you sure as hell better show your emotion, not get crazy. No, that's not what emotion is. You use that background to draw on. And don't ever be ashamed of it. I went through years of having shame that, oh, well, I was teaching there and now I'm in corporate America, because I believed that, well, being a teacher is nothing in comparison to being in corporate America. And once I was in corporate America and I started getting more and more and more job offerings, I was turning them down because of my knowledge of my own empowerment. So please, everybody, we all started somewhere. And if not for those meager beginnings, we would not be the people we are today. So that's my number one power move.
So that was amazing, Dr. Gilda. But we have to take a commercial break. So we'll be back with more of Dr. Gilda's wisdom right after this. Welcome back, everybody. A Passage to Profit, and I'm just blown away. I mean, I love this segment, and I love how Dr. Gilda is encouraging us to really know who we are and to put it out there in the right way. Kenya, do you have a question or a comment?
I do. In terms of like someone being strategic, like whether you're a business owner or it's a life application, what are some initial steps that someone could put into play to come up with a good overall strategy, right? Whether it be in business, whether it be in life, and how can they make that applicable and really map that out? So it makes
Well,
sense.
actually, this was my last point in Power Moves, but I'm going to make it my new point for you. Love what you do, let people know what you do, and ask for what you want and believe you deserve to get that. That's number 1, number 5, number 20, number 100. Ask for what you want and believe you deserve to get it. Because if you don't ask, what do you think? They're going to wait around and say, you know, you need this, you need that. So you have to know in advance what you want so that you can ask for what you want. And most of us are saying, oh, I wonder why he did this, and I wonder why he did that, as we're being interviewed by somebody for a potential job, for a potential position somewhere. And no, don't wonder, ask, and be courageous enough and curious enough to ask in a way that that you will be answered positively. So believe in yourself, believe in what you are there to achieve, and believe that you're going to get what you're going to get. I do believe, I am from the school of believe and you will achieve. If you believe it, you can see it. I went out with an NFL star and he said, I see every single move before I make it. I learned so much from him. He visualized every single move that he was going to make. So your strategy is to go into a meeting feeling confident, understand what you have to offer, but also you have done your homework about the other person with whom you're talking. And so you know what that person's needs are. You have to be there to fulfill that person's needs. Just because you want something, well, too bad. You have to be there to serve. We are all on this planet to serve. And so you hit that person with what you can do to serve the person, knowing what that person's needs really are.
Well, that is huge, because oftentimes when Richard hires a service provider, which we've had some experiences lately, I don't want to get into, he hires them to make his life simpler.
Right.
And that doesn't always happen. But that's really, I mean, if you're going to put yourself out there as
But
doing
I mean,
something,
isn't that just
right?
like a general rule of life? You really only want to surround yourself, for the most part, to the extent you can, with people who are going to make your life better. Maybe not simpler, but at least better.
Well, take over the tasks you don't want to do, or be happy around you, or whatever. Yeah.
But Richard, just because you understand that doesn't mean that the person you're talking to understands that. Just because you understand, you want to make your life simpler. And that usually means, okay, just do this and leave me alone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I hit the nail on the head.
You
So
did.
that's what I mean. It's not about us. It's about them. We have to know who they are, what their needs are, and how we can fulfill those pain points that they are having. If not for them having a pain point, why are they talking to us? So
Right.
acknowledge that pain point, acknowledge your background so you can fulfill that pain point, and then that person will hear you, because we are a culture of horrendous listeners. Nobody listens to anybody else. Nobody would talk unless they figured, well, my turn is next, so I'll just listen to this person going on and on and on, and then I'll be able to get my points across. No, what we have to do, and there's a whole different program that I'm talking about here, about listening so that you can then respond. That's very important. And that, my first PowerPoint was boost your background, know who you are, know where you came from. My third PowerPoint, because you had asked about that, is ask for what you want and believe you deserve to get it. But in between that, I want to give you a power move. It's my EDM technique. When you are meeting with anybody, you have what I call an dialogue. eye contact with that person, dancing back and forth with your eyes, back and forth, so that you connect on the windows of the soul level. And that might only last for 2 seconds. The D is then to do a dialogue with that person, and with anything but what you're there to discuss. How's the weather? How is the traffic getting here? Oh, did you have trouble getting into the city? Did you have problems with this or this? Whatever. How are your kids today? This morning, my child had a temper tantrum before we were going to school, and I had to calm her down, blah, blah, blah. Anything that is insignificant in terms of the goal that you're there to do. You know, this overselling stuff has gotten out of hand. How many people on LinkedIn? I've had just recently, a couple of my LinkedIn posts have gone viral, and we have millions and millions and millions of views on them. And now I'm hearing from people, hey, you know what? You ought to do this. And how would you like to buy that? And I can do this for you. And I can do it without even asking, what are your pain points? What are your needs? So this whole overselling has become overzealous and ridiculous. So if you have dancing eyes between you, that's number one. If you have a dialogue that talks about anything but what you think you have to talk about, that's perfect. And what you're doing is setting up the scene so that you can finally go into your monologue about what you do and who you are. And what we have seen in the world today, especially as resources become tighter and tighter, is that we have people who start out with a monologue. Hello, my name is Dr. Gilda Carle, and I talk about power strategies, and I am a relationship expert, and I talk about this, and I talk about relationships for the bottom line and business. And by that time, the person's eyes have rolled over and they're ready to, well, they're not going to listen. We only listen for short segments of time, and nobody listens like this at the edges of their chairs. Nobody does that. We need information.
I don't know. I'm kind of on the edge of my chair right now, so I'm absorbing every word,
morsel,
every word.
Well, so the whole technique involves EDM, dialogue, then monologue, in that order, instead of the usual, hi, my name is blah, 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 and this is what I can do for you. And then the person says, well, why bother? Why bother? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten off a stage and people will come up swarming me on the stage and say, here's my card. I'm a travel agent. Here's my card. I do this. Here's my card. I do that. Well, and the question is why? Why should I buy from you? What have you done to have made my life so much easier and simpler? To take Richard's word again, what have you done? How have you proven that this is going to benefit me? Why should I buy from you other than somebody else? You cannot do anything in your life today without following these 3 power moves. Boost your background, the EDM technique, and know what you want and believe you deserve to get it.
Those are really powerful techniques. And I think a lot of people, I think we got sort of caught up in the whole corporate attitude toward advertising. Not that I have anything against corporates, but they're looking for a mass market, and their strategy seems to try to be reach as many people as we can. And out of those people, a certain percentage are going to buy our product. But if you're a different kind of service provider and maybe a little bit smaller, I think establishing those relationships on a mutual need basis, as Dr. Gilda has outlined, can be a lot more effective, because then you have that human connection. And what I'm hearing is, when you talk about your approach, you're really talking about a human to human relationship that is mutual, as opposed to just, one way. So,
I I am professor emerita from a New York business school. And when I came out here to Scottsdale, where I am now, I said, okay, been there, done that, graduated from that. I'm not going to do that anymore. And then people here found out I was here, and they said, and before you knew it, I was pushed into another teaching job. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to do it. But now I'm a professor of MBA students at Forbes School of Business and Technology. And the students are, in many times, they're lawyers, they're doctors, physicians, they're engineers. They have amazing degrees, and it's a global school, so it's from all over the world. And I'm getting all these different cultures, and they are still into the task. The task has to be done. Task orientation. Oh, no. The opposite of task, the balancing, is the people. And that's where I want people to understand. They have to deal with those people issues. We're all people. We're human beings. We cry, we laugh, we're happy, we're sad. We go through ups and downs. And those people have got to be managed. And so I tell this to my students who have already had some significant career positives. And yet it's hard getting through that to them, getting to them with that information, that the people are so important. And now they're coming around to see that happening. And it's just a great thing, because bottom lines, whenever I get called into a company to find out why is this bottom line so iffy, it's always because of some kind of interpersonal issue.
Right. And I think if we learned anything from COVID, I think one thing that we all really learned is people need each other, and these interpersonal problems and issues and skills are so important. I mean, people are just dying to be around each other and interact personally and have fun with each other. And so the communication skills and being around other people is so important.
So important. And one of the unfortunate situations now with our kids is that their heads are buried in their cell phones, and they don't have these skills. And this is where I worry the most, because when they have to have an interpersonal relationship with anybody, they're out to pasture. They don't know how. They have not gotten these skills. My niece, I have triplet nieces who are 12 years old, so they're right in the fold of all of that. One of them came, and I have different ones each weekend, and one of them came and spent some time with me. Her head was buried in the cell phone. And I said, why'd you come here? Why'd you come to be with Aunt Gilda if you're, if you're not going to talk to me?
I can't, we all have stories, but one that strikes me is we were at a restaurant about a month ago, and it's a very nice restaurant, beautiful family of 4, husband, wife, 2 young boys, one probably, 13, the other one probably 10. And they're sitting around the table, and they all are looking at their devices, and they're not talking to each other.
No
right?
talking. Right.
And it just struck me as this was probably normal for them. But, social media and cell phones are a way to avoid human contact, which can sometimes be messy, right? And it's not always as perfect as we'd like it to be. And so the social media is a good place to hide behind. But it was just supposed to be a nice Sunday dinner, and they just.
Should we go to Kenya for a comment?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Kenya.
I mean, I don't really have too much of a comment, other than I would say, if you had to, wrap it all together in a bow, what would you say are some of the most important things that people need to do as a first initial step to putting forth a really effective strategy that's going to generate a ROI, whether it's in business or in life?
It all gets back to one of the first questions you ever asked me, Kenya, on this show was, what about your relationship with yourself? How do you rate that? And how do you assess that? And it's all about knowing what you want, knowing what you can do, and understanding how potent your skills are and how you can deliver that to the person you're communicating with according to that person's pain points. We all have pain points, but you have done your homework and you are going right in to that person and strategizing how it's best for you and that person to operate as a team so that you can achieve what the person has called you in to achieve if you are consulting with that person.
Doc, I would just add to that, that if you're trying to build a business strategy, you need to identify a need that
Yes.
somebody out that's not being fulfilled. And then once you identify that need, that niche, whatever it is, whether it's with a person or a market, then then it's up to you to take it to the next step and fulfill that need, right?
But you can't just take it. You have to have a buy-in from the person that you are serving. And you can't have a buy-in from that person unless you're on the same page. For example, if you think you're a corporate America, for example, is going to hire you, I've been there a million times. Corporate America is going to hire you and say, look, our executives are X, Y, and Z. They need training in P, Q, and R. Fine. So here comes Dr. Gilda, and I'm supposed to teach these people P, Q, and R because the company told them they need X, Y, and Z. What are the people saying? I was dealing with a group of terribly angry executives early on who were pissed off at their boss for not giving them raises and promotions. And before you knew it, I was doing half an hour of therapy around a conference room with all these men. And that's why, and you know what, when they started to ask me those questions, as a result of all of that, I went home and I wrote the book, Don't Bet on the Prince. And that was supposed to be because, my publisher said, oh, well, we have to write books for women, relationship books who are only read by women. And I wrote that because here are all these men dependent upon their prince, their boss, who was supposed to give them raises and promotions. These were all mid-level to upper level managers. And I said, have you ever talked to your boss about what you want? Now, is this any different than a marriage? And what did they say to me? Well, he should know. And so he is Bengali and he should know what you want. That's my point. You have got to understand what's happening and talk to these people and hear them out. Let them spill their guts on at the conference table, on the golf course. I don't care where it is. Let them spill their guts and talk to you honestly and truthfully about what has happened, what needs to happen. And then you turn it around and say, what would you like to happen next? So it's coming from them. And then I can do what I was there to do from the very start. But
There
you
you
see,
have it.
manipulative way of working. It's manipulative from my standpoint, but you cannot go in like a bull in a china shop and say, I am here to help you do the blah, 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 blah. And you're going to be met with, oh, really? Who do you think you are?
Well, I think I have one other suggestion to add to that. When they actually state what they want and what they're willing to do, I think you should get them on tape.
Oh,
So
I'm a
Turn
big
on that
believer. I'm a
recorder
big
on your
believer of
iPhone.
that. Yeah, I'm a very big believer of that. Of course I do media coaching. Everybody goes on tape. And then they're always afraid. Are you going to use this tape against me? No. Watch me erase it.
Well,
Here's the tape. You use it for your purposes.
so when we started Gearhart Law, my feeling was that people didn't like lawyers. They weren't, and they were distrustful of lawyers, and that lawyers were too expensive. And so, I felt that there was a market out there for just normal, regular people who had ideas and inventions, and they wanted a reasonable amount of protection. And that a lot of the law firms, the larger law firms that had intellectual property staffs were only interested in Xerox and IBM. They weren't interested in the small entrepreneurs. And so I kind of banked on that and built a business model around that. And so, in my opinion, it wasn't so much it was just personal observation over the years based on how I had seen other attorneys act. And I thought, this is an underserved market. There's a lot, and it was true. There's a lot of low hanging fruit there. A lot of people wanted somebody who they felt comfortable with, right? And not somebody that they were, they felt intimidated by. And that's how we started the firm, based on those approaches. So I think part of strategy is what's going on in your own head, and it's definitely what's going on in your own head. But part of it is looking around and saying, okay, is there a need out there someplace, and how do I go ahead and how do I fill that? And so,
but between what you know about you, and this gets back to Kenya's answer again, between what you know about you and what you see the client needs, there is this big, vast space where you have to be able to communicate exactly in their language, in their tone, so they are receiving that information that you have given them. That is very essential.
Thank you.
If they're talking one language and you're talking another, you're not going to make any headway.
Thank you, Dr. Gilda. That is so true. I just want to say we have young attorneys who are very, very smart that come to the firm as interns, whatever. And we ask them to write blog posts, and they're writing blog posts for other lawyers. They're not writing them for people. I mean, lawyers are people.
No, no, I understand. Yeah. So they are writing from their perspective, and they have lost, or they probably never learned about serving the people to whom they must be who they must be serving. And that's the miscommunication that is constantly going on. And this is why companies call me in to get that all solved. Because
Yes.
Look, I can tell you a million times, know yourself, know what you can do, know how you can serve this other company. They will call you in. They'll say, here, we'll give you a 6-figure contract, and you could do this and this and this. Well, between you knowing what you must do and they giving you all this money to help them, now the work is really in that gray area of communicating their language. And I never go into a company to do work without first investigating the people who work there and talking to them, going to their parties, integrating myself into their culture so I understand what is really going on, because there is the issue and there is the real issue. And the real issue, it's the Pareto principle. Once again, we see 20%, 80% is buried. It's your job as a consultant, or it's your job as a leader, to find out what is buried and how can I extrapolate what is deeply buried from what must be out there. And communicate it in a way they can hear, because we're all talking. Nobody is listening. We can talk at 250 words a minute. We listen at 500 words a minute. That's a whole lot of extra listening time that we are capable of doing. And yet we are missing the boat because our minds are wandering, because your speaker has not hit the nail on the head.
Wow, that's really great advice. I hope there's a lot of people listening to this.
I hope there are. So we have to take a break, Dr. Gilda. I hope you'll stay with us. And we have Power Move and Fireside coming up, as well as our presenters. So we'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this. Well, welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. And that was Dr. Gilda Carle. Fantastic advice. Passionate advice, and And as we were talking on the break, life changing. So we really do appreciate having you here. And now we're going to go on to another Power Move segment. Kenya Gibson, who is our Power Move person today?
So for Power Move today, we're actually going to talk about one of my iHeartRadio colleagues, Angela Yee, who just announced last week that she is going to be leaving the Breakfast Club, but for some really big things that she's going to be doing in media. She's launching her own show called Way Up with Yee. It's going to start this fall, and she already has it syndicated in several markets. I won't say the syndicator because I know we're syndicated too, but this is happening for Angela, and I'm really happy for her. I'm really happy for the Breakfast Club, and excited to see what the next level of her media journey looks like. So she's our Power Move today.
Wow, that's awesome. What is going to be the format of her show? Do you know yet?
So it's going to still be in the morning. It's going to start at 10 o'clock. So it's going to be, I don't want to say like a later version of the Breakfast Club. She hasn't really disclosed how it's going to be formatted, but if you're not up early 6 to 10 to catch the Breakfast Club, you can catch her from 10 to 2 Monday through Friday. And if you're a late sleeper or you're at work and you miss morning drive, Angela will be there to get you through the rest of your day. So super excited for her. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of pop culture things. She'll have some guest interviews. She has her very successful podcast, Lip Service. So maybe it'll be a little spin of some of that, but really excited for her. Many women in radio do not get that opportunity to go out and have their own show and be syndicated. So I'm excited that she is paving the way for us all, and, excited to hear her show once it launches this fall.
That sounds great.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I can hardly wait.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth, Power Fireside.
So
How about a Power Side segment?
Okay.
It's a lot of power going on today.
That's right. Power, power, power.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Fireside Directory, which I'm probably going to have to change the name because of the trademark issue, is an online directory, video directory of small businesses. And I did, like TikTok, I did apply for a patent application. Actually, TikTok bought theirs, but I applied for a patent application. I got a provisional application almost a year ago, which means I had a year to work on my project and on my application before it becomes, quote, the real one, the utility application, which will be examined by the patent office. And then they'll decide if my application can become a real patent or not. So right now it's due September 21st. And we're recording this on August 31st. So I am feverishly working on this, and I'm using the attorneys at Gearhart Law. So the most important part of your patent is the claims. So I did the claim. I had another attorney at Gearhart Law go through and redo them. And then I had Richard do the final version because it's really important to get that piece right. And you really have to have somebody that knows what they're doing. And then at Gearhart Law, we have this software that you can put the patent application through, and it checks for little things that the patent office hates and fixes them. So, I don't know how better to put it, but it checks.
I want to keep the patent office handy.
Yeah, it checks for like if you called something different names in two different places, or just all sorts of little mistakes that you can make. It checks for all that and lets you check it and fix them all. So you get a much better quality product that way. So that's my next step, is to go through and do that. And then I have to rewrite some things. So I know it's 3 weeks away, but the 3 weeks goes really fast.
It really does. And a lot of people don't know. Speaking of not telling a person's complete story, that you're a patent agent. You're actually registered to file patents before the patent office.
Draft patent applications, file them, and argue for them to be allowed into patents.
Yes. So you have a high degree of patent knowledge.
Not as much as the attorneys at Gearhart Law. I mean, I haven't been doing a lot of it. I've been doing my own, but if I really want a good patent application, I'm going to take it to your James.
I know. I told her she has to make the bed for a week if I do the claims.
Well, his name was on the patent application, so I forced him to work on the claims. But anyway, enough about that. I have been really waiting anxiously to talk to our presenters today. Dr. Gilda, you were amazing. Anybody listening out there, if you missed what Dr. Gilda said, it will be on our podcast, wherever you find your podcasts. And you really should listen to it. She has just had an amazing career and still has wonderful advice to give. But now it's time to move on to Sue Marshall with NETZRO. And I absolutely love what Sue is doing. She's trying to eliminate food waste. That's all I'm going to say. Welcome, Sue. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Gilda. It gave me a nice base today to start from, because I do believe what she was saying about knowing your history and knowing why you are here
Thank you.
and the reason you're here. And as an entrepreneur, that is absolutely has to happen for success. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So NETZRO is a state-of-the-art upcycling food platform. And we are a B Corp, by the way, so there's a lot of impact here in addition to food waste. So that is part of my history. I love to make a difference, so that's great. The platform includes knowledge, of course, about food science, about food technology, about the food upcycling world and the industry. We'll get into that in a minute. It also does have really cool patent pending equipment, this big thing that does this great stuff. And then connections to the market. So the people who will use these new upcycled food ingredients, which is very important, because equipment alone will not solve things. Knowledge alone won't solve things. It is relationships, Dr. Gilda. So thank you for that. That is true. So yeah, we at upcycling food, a lot of people in the audience are like, what is upcycled food? Is that food waste? I don't understand what she's saying. Food waste, we consider in the industry of upcycled food an asset. So we don't want to say the word waste. It's actually considered a bad word. We want to see it's food assets that are typically diverted in the wrong areas. What we want to do is divert them back into human consumption and pets, just higher values. So the platform itself does capture safely. It powers, love the word power, powers the safe capture of and converts those industrial food byproducts. So it's not food waste. So I want to be very particular here. When you think food waste, you think the stuff on your plate goes into a dumpster. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about industrial byproducts from food and beverage manufacturing. The best thing to visualize is the beer you drink. When you drink the beer, the grain that was used is typically thrown or very underutilized. And that grain is actually power grain because they took the sugar out. So you have protein, fiber, and the flavors left. And so that should not be thrown away or undervalued. So that's one. Almond milk, oat milk, all of these products have lots, tons and tons of byproducts. So what we do is that's a new sustainable, upcycled, nutrient-rich ingredient, then that is put in brand new products. And I know you had Mike from TBJ here on the show. He does the bacon that's not utilized in the factories and then makes his bacon jam. So that is an upcycled food product. He is a company making products. So that's the visual here. So it's completely circular, goes from people who use, the ingredient, but then throw some of it away. We now divert that back in, and the technology we have in our platform makes all that happen. So yeah, so that's what we do at NETZRO.
I was just going to say that's amazing. I mean, until we just met, I didn't even know that was a thing, and I'm very excited about it because all of that. I'm a big food not waster, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Richard.
And
Put it in the refrigerator if you're not going to eat it.
I'm like, if the cheese is
Listen to Dr. Elizabeth now.
if the cheese is moldy, I scrape off the mold and I eat the cheese because I think it's a sin to waste moldy cheese. And so and one of the things that's my pet peeves is I look at how much food we throw away. I understand it's different from what you're talking about, but it's just the idea that there are people starving in India and other places. That's what my mother always used to say. There's people's and
in the United States
and in the United States and everywhere else. And there's so much is wasted, and it would be so great if we could capture that and not waste all the energy and effort and labor that goes into creating food products.
And then it's wasted.
and then
Yes.
it's wasted.
Mhm.
Well, this
Yeah.
comedian I was watching last night on America's Got Talent said his wife got mad at him, so she took the heels of the bread and made a sandwich, but put the brown part on the inside, so he didn't know he was eating the heels of the bread. Anyway,
That's a food
He
waste
was-
soldier right there.
he was hilarious.
That's
But-
passive aggressive. I'm
said-
sorry.
but he said she worked with large and small scale businesses across the country. So Gearhart Law actually has a number of food clients. What do you do with small businesses? How do you help them?
Yeah, so in the Upcycled Food Association, which is a thing, so you can Google that, Upcycled Food Association, we have over 200 members now, and most of them are smaller right now, but all the bigger companies are getting involved and sponsor some things too. So really what NETZRO came out doing with the technology, and I made a decision, and to Dr. Gilda's point, you know, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I didn't need to start NETZRO. I could have just called it a day. And I really wanted to look at other entrepreneurs, help them, and in food and agriculture. So I decided that the technology would go first to them. I would go, you know, the team would go with them and say, okay, what kind of byproducts, what kind of things are you making? So right away, you can be sustainable and environmentally friendly. Let's face it, the big companies, they're standing by the wayside going, oh, maybe, maybe not. It can't, we have this challenge and we have to do it today. And so I knew that the path would be towards smaller companies first and get that momentum going. And in the trade association, we all went that way too. We said, you know, let's look at what we can do together as smaller companies, entrepreneurs, and then let's build this thing together. So that's really how we did it. Now we have an industry. When we started the trade association, 8 founders of it in 2018. We were all small. We all get together and said, let's create a trade association. That's what you do when you have something, a new movement, like upcycled movement, you know. And then all of a sudden, you know, COVID hit. But when COVID hit, it brought all these big companies. It brought all these experts in law and certification of food and science. And they came aboard and said, let's do this. Let's make an actual food certification. So today you can buy food in a grocery store. If you turn around back a pack and you see organic, non-GMO, fair trade, you'll now see a UP with a leaf. And that means that product contains upcycled ingredients. Fully powered by NETZRO. That's what we do behind the scenes. So consumers can actually be involved and have a choice between a pancake mix that doesn't have upcycled grains from a brewery or pancake mix that does. And that's going forward in the future. We know consumers, we have the surveys, we know they want this, and they also will pay a little more money for it, which is all good to know. 2021, there was a $221 million market last year, and it's going to double within 10 years. So it's a real thing. In my world, in our world at the NETZRO team, we also look at the accessibility part of it and the food justice part of it. So I didn't go into this just saying, oh, let's make some cool stuff, high-end niche products. I really want to get 20 billion pounds of grain in this next couple years that goes to waste after we drink all our spirits and all our beers, and get it back into the food supply chain to everyone, not just those who can pay for really cool niche products. So that's a whole nother element of our goal at NETZRO, is how do we take this technology and that platform and make it accessible to smaller companies that are, you know, on the path to grow, as well as engage the larger companies in the right way.
So are most of your products then focused on grain? Is that your main focus right now? This is a
Well, you'll like this, Richard, because this is all about the patent part of it. So when we started fooling around in 2015, I came out of the university. I went back to school as a non-traditional student, i.e. old. Okay. That's okay. I took that. I loved it. I loved the venture side of the university, and I knew I would start something new, not to do with anything I had done in the past. And I, you know, claimed to them, I said, I'll come out with a new company. I just didn't want to commit right away up front what it was going to be. And I, you know, got all these students, young students, tell me about all this, you know, environmental, sustainable, how my generation really screwed everything up. I'll take that too. So I knew it. And then I ran across somebody who was doing a similar, you know, technology that with infrared which I was interested in, and using it on upcycling cow manure. Yes, poop. That's
Upcycling poop? Like really?
yes, yes. And so I
There's a
started.
market for it somewhere, right?
There is. It's called fertilizer. And I did. I thought it was really amazing. People are like, "You're so weird." Okay, back to my background. I came from a farming family. I wasn't scared of poop. I used to pick up those dry cow patties.
So you know what? Can I just break in real quick, Sue? I want to make sure that we give Kenya. I can tell Kenya has a question or a comment, and then we want to go to
Like the
Dr.
poop thing.
Gilda too. So Kenya,
I actually have an idea for you. And what would the show be without an idea, right?
excellent.
So I know education is probably a big piece to your puzzle. And you mentioned something earlier about doing something on TikTok. Have you ever thought about creating like the ABCs of like food waste, like almost in a audible jingle form where kind of people are, you know, you're using maybe the alphabet, like the alphabet was a way we learned everything, right? And it sticks with us. So I think you could do something really cool. And even if you maybe did it with kids, like that would be, I think, very impactful.
That might be my TikTok thing.
That's what I was saying.
There you go.
Yeah.
Finally say yes to TikTok.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. But no, I was like, I've been gnawing on that since you spoke it earlier. I'm like, this could be something really cool and effective. Right.
Yeah. And younger people love this, Kenya. And that's what I did not realize when I started. I have young people who literally after in college, out of college, beg me to come work for NETZRO, and they'll do it for free. I'm like, no, don't tell your parents you're saying things like that. They pay for your education. But they're so passionate about changing the world and helping the environment. And so this thing just clicks with them. And so I know that we could utilize something like that to get them even rallied more. So yeah.
Oh yeah. And I know Dr. Gilda's got to have a comment.
Well, I have a question. Actually, first of all, a compliment to Kenya because she always comes up with fabulous buzz ideas. Really, really, thank you. I have a question about, are there health benefits for John Q public to pick this up? Yeah, I'm going to spend more money at the supermarket to purchase one of these products, but how is this going to affect or not affect?
Yeah. That's perfect, Dr. Gilda. And I'll go back to Richard's questions on, is it just grain? So when we first built our little version we put on the lab table, right? We put all kinds of stuff in it just to see how it would react. And eggshells came in. And what we didn't realize at the time is that infrared heat acts differently on different colors. And when you have an eggshell, you have that sticky membrane, when you hard boil an egg and that membrane won't come off and it's frustrating. That's actually collagen protein. It mimics a human placenta, which makes sense because there's a baby chick in it. And we as human beings, we just get frustrated with this thing. But in reality, that with our technology, it just came flying off like rose petals. And that is when somebody in the lab said, go call the attorney. We have something. Okay. What do we have? Okay. And then but the balance is left is calcium because the hard part of the shell is calcium. So you really have two products. You have collagen protein and you have calcium. And until now, there's been not an easy way to separate those two. And then those two can be safely captured. So it's got to be safe for human consumption. And then it can be put into products. So we have products now, food products we eat that have calcium. That's not a new thing. That calcium is mined and typically from Asia. So we're fracking, we're mining, we're doing things we shouldn't to get this mineral. And it's not pure or natural because there's other stuff in it we actually shouldn't have. So that's not good calcium to have. And here we have tons of eggshells thrown a day. Every day, chickens don't stop laying eggs. They have this stuff and it comes out. And so we looked at it and went, okay, we have something. So really the eggshells were first to understand that there was a value proposition with patent potential and trade secrets and all kinds of stuff around that. And then also we realized, wow, it does really well on anything. Grain, seed, olive mash from olive oil plants. Any of those oils have all that mash. So when people call us, we have 1 week a month where we play in the lab, and that's all we do is test things people send to us. And I always ask people first before they send, 1,000 pounds of something, what do you think is in it? What nutrients are in it? Because if there isn't anything nutritionally, it's not worth it. at this time. That's my feeling, because we have a lot of things out there that is nutrient rich that we want to get at first. So that's when you put those things back into food, calcium, collagen, protein is everything right now, right? So that's what I'm going for too. When people say, I have, thousands of pounds of this, let's first look at nutrient first. So yes,
So is this part of your advertising campaign?
We're B2B, so it's a little different. The Upcycle Trade Association, we are going through that now with educational pieces, because as a trade association, education is, and then supporting its members through that, important. So we all believe the same when we founded it, that, it's people, it's better food, from things that would have been wasted. And so let's look at it that way. So we do need a whole education, around it at this point for consumers. That's our interest in our.
So
focus.
Sue, if I'm making almond milk, which I looked at the recipe, I decided not to do it because I love almonds, and it's like, my God, you're throwing away all these almonds. Like, so I'm making almond milk, and then I have the almonds, the crushed almond mass left over. Do I get paid from you if I sell that to you? I'm like, do I sell that to you? Like, how does this process
Here's
work?
this used grain here. Give
Yes,
me, yeah,
yes.
I'll take a big check. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Elizabeth, as soon as you commercialized that little project you had and you started really making almond milk for lots of people, maybe it's even just locally to start with, and maybe you have 5,000 pounds a week. Our equipment, the price of our equipment was built around about 10,000 pounds of this byproduct a week. It will work for you, right? So you have to get to a certain point where then you'd want the equipment yourself. And that's what we do. We sell the equipment, license the technology, and then we help you sell that upcycled almond powder. In that case, we'd probably encourage you to maybe mill it. We will recover it safely, get it ready for human consumption, and then it can be milled. So once it's milled, it can go into almost anything. And that almond that byproduct should be upcycled, because it takes a lot of resources to grow almonds. It's one of the highest resource intensive crops that is out there. So we should not be throwing its fiber, beautiful fiber, and there's still flavor left in that too.
So then I get paid, you help me sell the powder. So
Mhm.
is that maybe after I've paid off the equipment, maybe there's an investment, but do I get more profit from my business then eventually because I'm upcycling the almonds?
Yes, that's the revenue model for you. That is the win. You take away the food waste problem you had, and then you've got the great PR story. You're circular, you're doing good for the environment, and then you have the revenue potential of selling it. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Sounds
don't
like
worry.
a win-win-win.
I've got enough going on. I'm
Yeah.
not going to start.
How big are these machines? I don't know if we can fit one in our
In the
basement.
So I have a question. So I'm John Q. Public once again, and I'm in the supermarket and I see something in the back of the packaging with that little leaf. Will I understand that I will be giving back something wonderful. Will I also be getting something nutritionally by buying a little leaf as opposed to buying a product without the little leaf? That's the only question I have.
Yeah, and so I'm not the only food, upcycling food technology out there. And we talked about there's the patent, and then there's trade secrets and how you communicate to the public. So if you saw that product, and you can see it in the store today, you'll have a little NETZRO thing, powered by NETZRO, right? Then you know that this company, NETZRO's mission is to take byproducts that are nutrient rich. I can't say everybody will do that. Some people will upcycle anything and they're not thinking through that. But NETZRO, that is what we do. So if it's powered by, in other words, behind the scene, it came from us, our technology is deployed in areas where those byproducts are important for human health. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you, Sue.
Oh,
We could talk for hours. How can people find you, small businesses, if they want to take advantage of this?
Yes. So sales at NETZRO.us. That is our website, NETZRO.us. So sales at NETZRO.us.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
now we're on to our next presenter, Jean-Que Dar, and I'm not sure I said that right, but everybody just calls him Q because that's so much easier. And he's the founder of TAP, a mobile app where entertainment professionals connect, network, and manage their entire entertainment career. So I'm not going to say anymore. I'm going to let you tell us all about it. Welcome, Jean-Que.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. And this was really great just hearing what you guys have going on here at the show. So first of all, thank you for hosting me. And also, I think just some feedback from Sue, whenever I'm purchasing something, and because we're super health conscious and we're living in this age and society that's really aiming to be, that aims to be sustainable in all areas of life, the packaging between the bread without the logos and then the bread with all of the logos of organic net zero, I'm probably going to purchase that, even if it is a little extra money. It's interesting, right? Even if I don't know if the seal is really, or the product is really organic or not, it's interesting to see how today's consumer really just essentially is buying into what's being sold to us. Right, without doing a lot of that research. So it's one, first of all, it's very fascinating that you have this product, and I'm looking forward to purchasing a lot of net zero branded products, because that's what we're all about in this day and age. And I believe Biden yesterday just announced that they have just invested over $1.2 billion into the sustainable energy industry, and that there's over millions of jobs now that are getting ready to come out because of that investment into that economy. So really glad that we have a climate sensitive leadership right now in the US government. So really fascinating.
Great. So tell us about your company, Q, and what you're up to.
Yeah, so TAP is connecting everyone in entertainment. So right now there is just this massive, huge problem of where do you find a screenwriter? Where do you find a director or producer? Where do you find an actor? Where do you find anyone that works in entertainment? You literally can't find it. And it just so happens that the entertainment industry, it's all about who you know. It's all about how do you find a director? Well, you got to find someone that has produced a show and act for that director. And then the next question becomes, how do you know they're legit? How do you know if they're available? How much do you pay them? So the entertainment industry, which happens to be the largest independent contractors network in the world. It is the largest independent contractors network. And it also happens to be the most influential network of people in the world. So, these are the people that wake us up in the morning, that put us down, that get you guys on the show, that creates the radio, TV station, and film stations and producer and studio stations, and they essentially don't have a place to call home. We all network on ancillary platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of these other outside platforms that's not specifically catered to the entertainment industry. And it being the largest, most influential, we were like, we need to have a place where they can tap into each other, where they can connect, find each other, network, communicate, exchange deals, and also find a place where they can pay each other as well. And so that's essentially TAP.
Well, I'm reading the notes that we have on this, and what I like about TAP is you have an escrow payment. So you get to review everything before the funds are released to the person that you hired, because there's this trust factor there. You don't even know the person sometimes, right?
Correct. And that stems all the way from the major motion picture studios all the way down to the little guys. Most times what a lot of people don't see what's happening with the major motion picture studios is they end up running out of budget. And so there's this thing called an upfront guarantee where they cut a check to certain people that are a part of the production. And if the production goes over budget and there's no more money left, certain people don't get paid. And so with this escrow feature, what it says and what it does is that the moment you sign a contract, it's up to you, it's up to both parties to put into the contract whether or not you would like for the funds to be in escrow. So that way you can see that the money is there, and then you can go do the gig, go perform, do what you have to do, and then the funds get released. Because this happens, again, from major celebrities all the way down to that keyboardist that's playing at a cafe from someone that they found either on Craigslist or whatnot. And they're asking for their pay, and they're like, well, you know what? we didn't make any money in the venue this evening, so we're going to have to pay you with a couple of meal vouchers and we'll send you the money later. It also happens on major motion picture films, right? So you have art directors, set designers, VFX, editors, and whatnot, and they're anticipating a paycheck from the services that they rendered, and they're just not getting it. And they end up chasing down production companies to get access to their funds.
Wow. Dr. Gilda, do you have any comment on that?
Yes. I've been very fortunate because I've been on national television for 2 decades. And every time I'm on a show, I get some offers for some things. And that's how I got everything. But this makes much more sense. When young people ask me, so how did you become what you become? I can't retrace my steps because I was on this. And I was a regular on Sally Jesse Raphael as a therapist. And then MTV said, oh, come and be our love doc. I mean, that is exactly how everything from radio to TV to television to film. I mean, that's how my whole career was. But I was very fortunate because I was living in the New York metro area where it was the media capital of the world. So this was very lucky, but these young people, especially starting out, have nowhere to go and they don't know how to get started. This is phenomenal. I would certainly recommend this to them when they are looking around to get hired.
Correct. And, fortunately for you, Gilda, and I'm not sure if you've probably experienced this as well, but imagine someone like yourself working on maybe 5 or 6 productions at any given point in time. It becomes incredibly, first of all, difficult to manage those conversations, right? So you have emails and text messages, and then you have other forms of communication or meeting people in person, and there really isn't a place for you to manage all of that stuff. And so we have certain features created on the platform that are designed to help entertainment professionals. And one of those things is called the deal message thread. And in the deal message thread, everything is organized and categorized according to production. So you'll always know what's going on in one production and what's going on in the next production. And so you can easily just tap into that thread and you'll always be aware. The other beautiful thing for someone such as yourself is that, again, you might be working on several hundred productions a year, if even that, right? And so it becomes difficult of how do you track payment? How do you track your rights and your royalties, right? Without knowing that the conversation might not get deleted or the email might get manipulated or whatever the case might be. And what our software does is it's built utilizing blockchain technology where nothing can get deleted and everything is saved forever. And you can always track the whereabouts. One of the most grueling and insufferable things about the entertainment industry is the moment you have a project or a production, you set up an entity. And the sad part about it is the moment that that production is done, they dissolve the entity. And so all of the checks and people that are attached to that entity, they start to get a different name of an accounting company on the check. And then you start to ask yourself, why did my royalties or my residuals go from $5,000 to 50 cents? And you're like, well, how do I get in touch with the production company? Well, it's dissolved. Well, where's the owner of the production company? And you can't find them. And so the beautiful thing about TAP, and being that it's built on blockchain technology, it is attached to people forever for the life cycle of your rights. And you can always find people in entertainment, track conversations, track pay. And the beautiful thing about what we've incorporated is an entire vetting system. So you can't create a fake profile on TAP. We have a biometric policy in place where the very first thing you do is you're scanning your face and your identity to confirm to say who you are. You are more than welcome to put in your screen name. And then the second thing that we do is that we vet production so that there will be no fake productions on the platform.
Wow. Talk about hitting numerous pain points.
This
That
is so incredible. I just, talent traditionally has been dependent upon their agents and their managers. And sometimes those people are magnificent. Other times they are not so magnificent. And talent is left like, what do I do? Because traditionally, talent is not talent doesn't know power moves. Talent doesn't know power strategies. I mean, they are actors. They are performers, and they don't know the stuff that I was just talking about. They don't know where to go. And many times, I was just talking to somebody recently, top model. She's out here now, and she was screwed because the person who was handling her decided to retire, and then the people she was working with took her job, and she's ending up as a salesperson right now, and she doesn't want to deal with it anymore. And she had a whole career go down the toilet because they didn't have Q in her life.
Wow.
Right.
That's
And
That's
yeah,
incredible.
most creatives in the entertainment industry, first of all, only about 5% of the entertainment industry is made up of creatives. That's very interesting. Everyone else are all executives, middlemen, agents, managers, producers. Like for this show right now, we see two faces, but the entire staff behind the entire production is sizable, right? And so one of the things is that we know is that creatives, they lack that business acumen sense. Although they are the CEO of their enterprise and of their journey, but they lack the business acumen. They don't get contracts signed. And when they do receive a contract, they're not reviewing it. They're just simply signing it away. And that is for talent. And even in today's age, I think the biggest company that has really revitalized the entire entertainment industry is Netflix, because they stepped into the scene. They're hosting and having productions, and they removed the entire residuals and royalty payments. If there are certain A-list celebrities that you're not seeing on Netflix, it's because they don't have the residual and the royalty payments. And I think everyone on here is familiar with Full House, right? We all know the twin girls, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting to note about them is they kind of never have to work again because of their residuals and royalties from that one show. And so that entire model has now shifted. And the way that we can tell that it has shifted is that we can see Disney is no longer Disney. They have Disney Plus, right? Paramount has their own Paramount Studios, but they also have Paramount Plus. And HBO now has HBO Max. And a lot of these platforms, they have a residual built-in system. And in order to remove the residual and the royalty payment system, is they've incorporated a plus or a max or this or a
I didn't know that. Wow, Q, that's revealing.
Yes. Yeah. And so the purpose of TAP is to essentially put the power in the hands of the creators, right? And also in the hands of everyone that is on the platform. Now you have a platform that when you execute a contract, you'll know what you're signing, because you're going to get the little automated icons that say, are you aware that there's no residuals attached? Are you aware that this is how much you'll make? Are you aware that the terms say this? Are you aware that the rights are only for the United States, or that they only apply here? Are you aware that this contract expires in 2 years and you will not be able to renegotiate? So the platform is really designed to empower everyone that works in entertainment. And it's not just for creatives. It's made for film financiers, agents, managers, executive producers, directors, you name it. This is the place for people to manage their entire entertainment career.
I have a question. Yeah. Oh, Kenya, go ahead, Kenya.
No, I wish we had more time with you, because you're saying so many great things. I mean, even the blockchain technology that you mentioned, as like a newer tech geek, I'm like, this is fascinating. I would say even for the industry, like artist wise, right? And you talk about creators. 2 questions. Do you see this as not a replacement to what the function of a label or a record label does in terms of services that they offer to protect their artists? And is there some sort of intellectual property feature to your platform that protects creators? Because God only knows, I mean, I've had things stolen from me a gazillion times, but I happen to have 2 really good lawyers who are good friends of mine now. So that doesn't happen as much, but I'm just curious if there is an intellectual property piece to your platform.
So the entire platform was built around my background, as Gilda mentioned, which is one of the power strategies. And let me tell you, Gilda, thank you so much for these power strategies. I used to love EDM for the music side, but now I know it's dialogue, and monologue. I'm all about it.
Thank you very much. It's for every single field in the world.
Yeah. And so my background is in intellectual property, and I relocated to Los Angeles to work at an IP firm at Davis Wright Tremaine. And I was overseeing their entire biopharma patent practice. And one of the things that we noticed is that there were a lot of people coming into the office in the entertainment industry looking to track their rights and their royalties. So essentially trying to track their residuals. And one of the things that we noticed is that most people in entertainment, they lack, again, that business acumen to track their IP rights. So the entire platform is built around a place where the moment that you start a production, or if I'm interested in working with you, Kenya, the first thing that you say is, you know what, Q, connect with me on Tap. Let's talk about this on Tap, because on Tap, everything is traceable. And then you can invite people into a production room where you can have conversations back and forth. And you can always utilize those conversations used with the blockchain technology to track all those conversations. The other thing is you can always create a new production just for the sake of creating one to have a conversation back and forth, right? The other thing that we also provide on the platform is the ability to file a copyright application. So that is a service fee that's attached there, but it's very simple and it's very streamlined, where now anyone in the industry can file a copyright application on anything that they want, whether it's an image, whether it's music, whether it's tracks or whatnot. The difference between us and major studios or major like a Sony or whatnot is that these are middlemen. What Tap does is it removes the middlemen. You don't necessarily now need a lawyer to track your rights, right? You don't necessarily need an agent or a manager to stand up for you to say like, hey, make sure that my rights are protected, because the platform in itself does the job of what you need. One of the most recent settlements that's made pretty major news is Lizzo was sued by two people claiming that two guys essentially said like, hey, Truth Hurts was really by us. We were the ones that provided that. And the judge simply had one question: where's your proof? Where did you guys exchange communication that she took, that those words were yours first? Where? And essentially they can't find it. And in terms of copyright infringement, it always boils down to the proof. What proof do you have that you exchanged communication with X for you to claim that they stole your idea, or was it taken from public or whatnot? So that's the biggest difference of what we provide. And Tap essentially is protecting the intellectual property of everyone that is attached to a production.
A man after my own heart. What can I say?
Yeah.
So how do entertainment lawyers feel about this service?
So, and here's the thing with entertainment lawyers is so Tap is essentially made up of a lot of lawyers, right? Our CSO is a lawyer. Our senior government advisor is a lawyer. We have so many lawyers that have also invested into the platform. The beautiful thing, what lawyers enjoy, is it removes that headache of trying to find people. It becomes super, super expensive to try to track down a dissolved company that was filed by a registered agent, of which that registered agency might not be, that might also be closed as well. So it's difficult to track people in this entertainment industry, and let alone if someone just has an alias or has a fictitious business name, it's incredibly difficult as well to find them. And even if you try to find that person on, let's say, IMDb or on a music credits website, that is just their stage name, right? I didn't know who Puff Daddy was. I didn't know his real name until his clothing line came out. It was like, how do you track people in entertainment? And so this platform becomes a lifesaver for them, right? To be able to track people, to find people, and to essentially get the rights that they need for their clients.
Well, Q, this sounds amazing. I have one last question for you, and then we have to wrap up. How are people finding out about this? How are you getting the word out to the entertainment industry?
So we've just recently launched our beta platform so that we're essentially testing out a lot of things. We have an FEAB, which is a Film Entertainment Advisory Board, which is essentially comprised of a lot of people in entertainment, veterans, and we're launching it on the ground floor. We're launching it doing a grassroots campaign. We have social media, but we're essentially making it a place where people make a referral because we're still testing out the efficiencies of the platform, and anyone's welcome to join in Los Angeles. They can go to tap.ec, tap.ec, and that's where people can access the app and they can download the beta version of the platform. It's available on iOS and on Android devices. You simply create a new account, you go through the entire process, and you can start setting up productions today. You can file a copyright application today. So that's how people can find out about us.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we need to go to break now. This has been fantastic. What a great platform. Listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest today, Dr. Gilda Carle. And we will be right back with the wrap up after these messages. If you missed any of this, go look for our podcast.
And welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. Just really an amazing discussion from our presenters. We had Sue Marshall with NETZRO, and then we had Q with his amazing TAP platform that will revolutionize the entertainment industry and
of course,
really
Dr. Gilda.
kind of help artists stick up for themselves, I think is really, and I think that's very powerful and important. But now it is time for our question
of the day.
The question of the day. Is it
So-
really question of the day or of the week?
Oh, question of the week.
All
Okay.
right, yeah, all right.
So the question I have for everybody, and we're going to start with Dr. Gilda,
Oh,
is what is a good habit? We always talk about our bad habits. What's a good habit that you have?
a good habit is getting up early and getting to the computer and taking care of all my business, getting rid of the junk mail and going through the important messages that I have to address, and then going out and working out, and then coming back and doing what I have to do, whether it's shows or whatever it is. That's a good habit. A bad habit is staying in bed, not wanting to get out.
Okay, excellent. So let's go on to Sue. Sue, what's a good habit that you have?
Okay, some people will think this is crazy, but I love to-do lists. Okay, so at the end of my business day every day, I look at my to-do list for the next day. And then I realistically kind of reorganize because sometimes you can't fit all that in. And so I know that. So then I feel good about, okay, what can I do tomorrow? What can I put off the next day or next week? And then I look at my calendar too. Who am I meeting? And I feel that then my evening can be great. I sleep better if I just have that next day kind of planned.
Well, that is a good
That
habit.
is a really good habit. Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay, Q.
You.
What's your good habit?
A really good habit that I have is I meditate the moment I get up, the moment my eyelids open. I focus on, well, right now I'm going through a series, but the original meditation that I do every single morning is by Joe Dispenza. He has a morning and an evening meditation. And then most recently, I just started the Joe Silva technique. And the reason why meditation is important for me is because running a startup company is incredibly difficult. And we raise an incredible amount of money. We're attached with a lot of celebrities. So there's a lot of work to do. And so trying to get myself centered to make sure that I'm still relevant, that I'm still okay, and to also prioritize my lists for the day is to make sure that I'm grounded and to make sure that I'm centered. And then that gets me out of the bed and able to tackle and to challenge the day.
Excellent. A lot of people do like meditation. Kenya, what's your good habit?
Well, I'll sum it up quick, and it's more of a characteristic than a habit, and that's discipline. And I think that's something that I didn't always have like my whole entire life. And it was like a learned behavior and habit over time. But interestingly enough, I took a personality profile recently and I was high on the discipline chart in terms of just how I tackled things and tasks and so on and so forth. So I would say discipline.
I should learn that from you.
I don't know if I'm qualified to teach it yet, but
So-
I'm working there in that space. So
Excellent. So Richard?
I would say my good habit is I try to make as many trips to the refrigerator every evening as I possibly can. Because I'm against food waste. And so as a consequence, I get up, I'm usually watching television.
I
So
would
I
not
try to
call
watch
that
a
a
lot of
good-
television.
We're not
And
call
then
those good
I
habits.
go and I snack a lot. And I think it puts me in the right frame of mind to fall asleep on the sofa. So
Okay. Well, my good habit, and I was trying to come up with the question this morning before the show. So every single morning, like almost every single morning, unless I'm near death, I get out of bed and the first thing I do is I walk and I just walk in, I do laps around the house, which is ridiculous, but so I can drink my tea while I'm walking.
and we don't
But-
have any draperies or blinds on the first floor. So anybody, all the neighbors are saying, oh, yeah.
So I make sure I do an hour of walking every morning before anything else. And if I have an early meeting, I try to get up early and do it. And if I can't do it before the meeting, I do it finish it right after. So anyway, I think good habits are important to have. I don't know about you, Richard. No,
Well,
but
sometimes I just have to be difficult, you know.
well,
so.
he did have a habit when he started the law firm. He started it in the house. He would get up, he would get his coffee. We had an attic that had a door at the bottom. He would go and shut the door and go up in the attic and stay there and work all day.
I worked hard, but I'm definitely down with Sue in terms of planning. I think that,
Yeah.
good planning is critical. So
So
we're
we're
planning kindred spirits. there.
Yes. So now we are planning the show wrap up.
Oh,
And I'm going to go through everybody's websites one more
that
time.
was clever.
Oh, thank you. So our guest today was Dr. Gilda Carle, world-renowned go-to relationship strategist, power strategist, and media coach with 18 books under her belt. And you can
That's
find,
a lot of books.
yes, you can find
This
her.
lady knows her stuff.
She does. You can find her at www.drgilda.com. And then we had Sue Marshall with NETZRO on a mission to reduce or eliminate food waste around the world. And her website is netzro.us.
Yeah, I wonder if my cheeseburger would taste any better with grain from a gin mill.
Probably would. And if you're a small business and want to get a hold of her, sales at netzro.us. And then we had Jean-Que Dar, known as Q, with tap.ec, and he is helping entertainment professionals. Wow, I'm just in so many myriad of ways with this app. I can't even believe all the stuff he's doing with it. But
I love the fact that he's incorporating blockchain into this
Right.
because that is such an important technology, and it sounds like the perfect marriage between protecting artists' rights and the blockchain together. I mean, congratulations for doing that. It's amazing.
yes.
So anyway, I guess it's time for us to say goodbye. But before we do, Dr. Gilda, do you have any final words for our audience?
Know what you love what you do, and let everybody know about it.
That's great. So
Excellent.
unfortunately, we need to sign off for this week, but we will return to this station next week with another episode of Passage to Profit. Before we go, I'd like to thank the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, our producer, Alicia Morrissey, our program director, and Mark Wilson, our syndication manager. Our podcast can be found tomorrow anywhere you find your podcast. Just look for the Passage to Profit show. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, while the information provided in this program is believed to be correct, never take legal steps without checking with your legal professional. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again with another episode of Passage to Profit.